Matt from Tuppy Tarot. Welcome to another 10 Talk Tuesday. I want to ask you a personal question today. Are you going to be buried or are you going to be cremated when you die? I'm not really talking to you about your religious belief that says you have to be cremated because you are a Hindu or you will never be created because you are Jewish. I'm talking to you and me people, everyday people, not people of a specific religious bent, okay? I am asking you not if you have to be, because of religious or cultural practices, cremated or buried. I'm asking you just the normal people, what are we going to do? Why would we choose to be buried? Why would we choose to be cremated? And I've been thinking about this for a while because, strangely enough, my dad had to put his little dog down a couple of weeks ago, and they were devastated. My father and my stepmom are in their 80s. They're elderly, they're old folk, and this little dog was their life. And they had to put him down, and he was very old, he was very ill. So it wasn't like a big shock, but it was still incredibly painful for them. And when they went to put the dog down, they asked the receptionist, look, we'd like the ashes. You're going to cremate the dog. Yes, we'll have the ashes. And they, you know what? They never got the ashes. To this day, that was a couple of weeks ago, to this day, they still haven't been given the ashes of their little dog. And I just thought to myself, I wonder if that little dog wanted to be cremated. Maybe he wanted to be buried in their backyard. I know they've done that with a couple of their other little dogs and their other little pets that have died. They've kind of made a little sort of pet cemetery, God help us, in the backyard of their previous house. And it just got me thinking, do I personally want to be buried or do I want to be cremated? And it's not really, strange enough, it's not something I've really thought of before. And I was like, oh my God, okay, like how do you go about doing this? In South Africa, I don't know how it works overseas, but in South Africa, when you go, I took you on a graveyard tour a few weeks ago, and go and look for that, I think up here, I'll put a link up here, a card. So I took you on this graveyard tour, and I did say to you that they repurpose graves a lot in this country. My family has got a plot of a grave, okay, where my grandparents have been buried, and when my mother passed away 2 years ago, she was cremated, and we scattered her ashes there with her parents. They're her parents. And I'm kind of thinking, okay, that's where I would like to be. Now, I'm very lucky in that the plot is mine, my family's for life. We bought it outright. So if I die one day, when I die, they can basically just dig a hole and stick me on top of grandpa and grandma, because they're there. And mom's ashes are there. So they can literally just, if I want to be buried, they can just bury me there. Or scatter my ashes if I want to be cremated. The thing is that a lot of people haven't done this. You can't do it in South Africa anymore. You can't go and buy a permanent grave. You're only allowed to buy the grave you can lease it for a certain amount of time. And then you have to renew the lease. I don't know if that's how it works overseas, but here in South Africa, that's how it works. And I was just thinking, there's so many people who can't afford graves, who can't afford a big funeral at a gravesite with a big headstone and mourners and a big tent erected and, the whole funeral director and all that stuff. A lot of people can't afford it, especially these days with so many people being unemployed, so many people being laid off from work, so many people now having to work short hours because of COVID and all that crap. So I was just thinking, is it not cheaper in the long run to be cremated? I probably am going to go with cremation myself, not for any religious reasons, but I think the idea, and I know this sounds so stupid because it's just my body, my soul, the me that is here now is going to be gone. It's not going to be in this body. But still, the idea of my little shell over here, my flesh sack, as they call us, the idea of that being eaten by worms and maggots and things, I just can't imagine it. It actually, I would rather they burn it than let it actually be buried and rot. I can't even wrap my head around that. And yes, a lot of people said, oh, you know what, leave your body to medical science. It's not quite as easy as that, people. My mother had I think they call it a living will or whatever, where she actually donated her body to science to see what they could use. But by the time she died, she was actually too old. There was literally nothing they could use. probably the only things that were great were her eyesight and her hearing were fine. But there wasn't really, my mother was an elderly woman, you know, she had many elderly woman ailments, and they didn't really want her, they didn't need her. And that's not even a cheaper option, because a lot of people say, oh, well, you know, then you don't have to pay for a funeral. Well, no, it doesn't work that way. Read the fine print, people, okay? Especially if you're an organ donor and you donate the organs, you still have to, you as the family still have to bury what's left, okay? Kind of morbid when you think about it, but you've got to think about stuff like this. You can't just die and suddenly nobody in your family knows whether you want to be buried or cremated or hand your body into medical science or blah, blah, blah. What's going to happen? Personally, I want to be cremated. I think it's just the way I'm going to go, because as I said to you, the idea of being gobbled up by worms and little insects just really, really does not agree with me. In America, they actually have something, and I have seen this on YouTube and I've read about this, and it's a real thing. There was a book by a woman called Patricia Cornwell, and it was called The Body Farm. And it was about this place that the CIA have in America, obviously, where they actually use corpses and they leave them out in the sun and the rain and the wind, and they actually check how corpses decompose. And you can actually, yes, this is a real thing for those of you who don't live in America and don't know how crazy the Americans are. I love you, I love my American people, but come on guys, you are as crazy as fuck, okay? You're almost as crazy as South Africans, nearly, but you can't beat us in crazy. Okay, so there is this place called the Body Farm. It's part of the CIA, and you can donate your body to the Body Farm. Basically, to me, that's even worse than being fucking buried in my own coffin, because there you are just like left on top of the ground, so the hojos can eat you. Okay, all the nunus are going to come and just like gobble you. And yes, I'm sure that that's going to help medical science and forensic science and that. But I ain't no experiment, honey. No, no, not having that. Sorry for you. You're not experimenting on me. You're not cutting me up. You're not taking my cornea. You're not going to use my liver. As much as I want to donate the bits and bobs that are in here, I'm not going to do it. It's mine. Okay? Does it sound selfish? Does it sound selfish? It actually sounds selfish even to me. But you know what? It's my decision, and it's your decision. Don't let anybody say to you, you have to be cremated, you have to be buried. The whole family is being cremated, so you have to be. No. You decide what you want to do. You decide what's going to happen to you after you're dead. If you don't want to leave your body parts to people, or you don't want to be a donor, don't feel guilty about that. It's yours. It's your body. You've lived in this for 60, 70, 80, 20 years, however long you've lived in this body. It's your body, you know. So don't be guilt tripped into being cremated or being buried or leaving your kidneys as a donor or whatever. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. But I do think it's important to think about it. I think it's important, especially if you're a younger viewer, okay, if you're somebody in their like 30s. When you're in your 20s and 30s, you don't think you're going to die. Of course you're immortal. Have we got news for you? But anyway, you know, you're probably not thinking about this, but think about it, okay? And especially if you are in your 50s now and you haven't really decided what you're going to do, it's time, sweetie. It's time. It's time that you actually decided what you were going to do. It makes it so much easier for your family when you die, and it makes it just so much easier for like everybody concerned, you know? So yeah, that's my 5 cents worth. Are you going to be buried? Are you going to be cremated? Please leave a message down below. I'm really interested in this, and I'd really, really like to hear what you guys think of this topic. And it would be great if you'd like to share with me and with everybody else how you would like to be sent off, you know. Please let us know down below. I'm Matt from Tubby Tarot. I will see you next Tuesday for some more 10 Talk.